Welcome to Media Dialogues. Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter has been chaotic, disruptive, and very public. His twin mission of remaking Twitter and boosting its revenue has resulted in thousands of Twitter employees losing their jobs, advertisers putting their plans on hold, and users bracing for material changes. India has some 40 million Twitter users. That's a drop given that we have nearly 660 million totally. Yet Twitter has a massive, disproportionate share of the public conversation. To discuss how this social media platform will be affected by all the changes, including that $8 monthly fee for a blue tick and the wider ramifications of Musk's persona and mission, I'm talking to Suhasini Haidar, Diplomatic Affairs Editor at The Hindu. She's a journalist who uses Twitter very, very effectively. Govind Raj Ethiraj, he's the founder of India Spend and Boom, both independent digital news and media outlets. And in the studio, digital native Viraj Sheth. He's the co-founder and CEO of Monk Entertainment that connects audiences with brands and content creators on social media. And Harshil Karia, he's the founder of Shebang. That's the new age digital marketing agency with a big digital footprint. Because there's tons to talk about, and I'm sure we've all got vociferous opinions on Twitter and on Elon Musk. But I'm going to start with the journalists, if you'll allow me, because they use Twitter. We use Twitter really a lot as a community and rely on Twitter a lot as well. So Suhasini, first question to you. What are you making of this, of the changes, starting with the blue tick, and are you going to pay for it once it gets instated here?
Well, Anuradha, thanks so much for having me on this conversation, because obviously this is a lot of what we've been speaking about in journalistic circles. At the base of my concerns about the $8 blue tick is this, that Twitter is a very invaluable service. It's good for a journalist, for our research, big names, big personalities, foreign ministries are all available over here to make comments. It's very important for us as a ticker service, really tells us very quickly when something is happening, when some news is breaking in some part of the world, and it gives us instant feedback. I have an issue with the monetization of the Twitter service. These are services I would actually be okay with paying for. When it comes to the blue tick, when it comes to verification of identities, I think these companies need to be much more careful. Because the first question is the verification being done under what circumstances? Are you going to go through the identities of people? Are you going to do like a KYC for a bank when you charge this $8 for people? If it is an ongoing fee, does it mean you'll be constantly checking the identities of the people? Fair enough. But then give us a guarantee, as Meta or what was Facebook before did not give, that data will not land up somewhere else and not wind up in someone's election campaign or part of someone's advertising campaign. The second question is that there is a difference between privacy and anonymity. So I would say that, yes, I think it's very necessary for people to be identified. We get a lot of anonymous trolling, which does hamper some journalists certainly in their work. And these troll farms, as they are called, that are set up by political parties, are a constant harassment for journalists. So if the idea of the blue tick is to somehow do away with this, fair enough, but I would rather see other services being monetized and not this particular part of the service being modified. Finally, if Mr. Musk is saying that this is a democratization of the process, then I want to ask, how does an $8 fee democratize a process? After all, verification should be available for everyone.
Let me get Govind in here. Govind, what's your take on the blue tick? Is it really about a privileged, notable celebrity influencer who gets it? Or is it, what does it really signify? Because Musk has gone out and done a peasants and landlords kind of prestige issue. He's made a prestige issue of the blue tick, isn't it? Which actually it's not.
Right, Anuradha, thank you for having me on the show. So I think there are some imperatives for Elon Musk. I think if I look at it as a financial journalist, there's a very big hole in the balance sheet or in the profit and loss, which needs to be filled. Now, how he fills it is really his own problem now and not too many people, because he's pretty much the sole owner of the company. Now, whether he's going to charge for the blue tick or he's going to charge everyone or anyone who wants to be on Twitter or participate on Twitter to pay up something, I think is something that has to be figured out. But let me take a step back. I think the larger issue for any platform, Anuradha, is that of trust and security. If you look at all the tech and social platforms who are broadly about 15 years old or less today, all of them spend the first part of their existence focusing on the tech and assuming that you could really engineer your way out of any problem. And they were right too. But I think today what's happened is, with so many other developments and whistleblowers and government stepping in and so on, is that the trust and security matters as much as your technology does. And that perhaps is an area which, is, in my understanding, Elon Musk doesn't seem to have fully grasped or understood. And this is something other platforms have really broken their heads, tried to find technology solutions to social problems, and essentially understood and accepted that trust and security is an important part. Now, if the trust and security aspect of Twitter is in some ways diminished and threatened, I think what you will see is that people either drifting off or losing interest in posting their posting comments or posting material or even news for that matter. And that is something that may not happen overnight, but will happen. On the other hand, if trust and security is something that he and his team is able to reinforce and therefore also bring back the advertisers, who, by the way, are walking away precisely for this reason, then I think you have a more stable platform on which people like us will also go and pay for any privilege, whether it's a blue tick privilege or the privilege of just being there. I think on the more important thing for people like us as small independent media organizations, this is a distribution platform. It's essentially a way of distributing to obviously influential people, because this is not a reach platform. I mean, as you said, there are 40 million subscribers in India.
Less than 40 million.
Yeah, less than 40 million people in India. So it's really about distributing to them. Now, is distribution, now the other part is vanity, which at least to us does not matter. But I know it does matter to a lot of people. But I think the distribution part is something that can be a challenge in the near term. But I'm sure if it were to come to that, we can find a way, not engineer a way, but we can find a way out of it.
Okay. Viraj, I saw a tweet of yours when all of this started happening and Elon Musk actually completed the deal last week, on the last week of October. You sort of welcomed the idea that Musk runs it. You were also okay with the $8 monthly blue tick tag, saying that at purchasing power parity, it would not be that unaffordable for Indians. But it's not really authentication, right? They're not offering you verification. They're not offering you identity authentication with that tick. So that tick is actually quite meaningless on those terms. Would you agree?
I agree that there's been a lot of vagueness behind this blue tick and the $8. Initially, everyone thought, hey, we have to pay $8 for getting the blue tick, which means anyone can pay their way to getting the blue tick. So what's really the point of the blue tick? But then as things surfaced, and I think the head of safety and integrity spoke up, where he said that the $8 is for Twitter Blue, where you will get certain privileges.
Which is the subscription that has not yet been rolled out in India.
Exactly. It's going to be available in, say, 30 days, where you get certain privileges, which I'm totally fine
which
paying for.
Suhasini also alluded to, that she's okay with paying for these things.
Yeah, I agree with, in fact, quite a few points that Suhasini made, because I'm happy to pay for Twitter because personally it's my favorite platform. I love being active on Twitter, posting my thoughts on Twitter, right? So I'm okay with the $8 or, as adjusted to PPP, around 180 rupees a month for Twitter, for the privileges. My only problem is if you start verifying folks basis 2 layers, right? Okay, we were speaking about this, if it's identity or if it's notability. Why do you need 2 verification check marks?
Makes no sense.
It absolutely makes no sense. Let's only have verification marks for notability maybe. And then if you just want to check on identity, you could check it on the back end towards understanding whether
actually
these
there
folks...
I disagree with you. I would like identity to be checked and authenticated and not notability. I mean, if it's if it's Mike Tyson on Twitter, then it's Mike Tyson authenticated as Mike Tyson the boxer.
But what if there's like 10 Mike Tysons? Is my problem.
No, but that's when Twitter has to decide who is the real Mike Tyson or who is the real Oprah Winfrey, isn't it? That's the authentication that we need Twitter to do. And that is what the blue tick is about. We need to know who the Prime Minister of India handle is with. And that is the authentication that blue tick should allow, isn't it?
That's true. I think, again, the team needs to take some time out. They're also in a trial and error method. Elon Musk has just brought this on. And maybe he's a little confused on what needs to be done. Maybe the team needs to figure out where is it that they will, derive their authenticity verification from.
The news breaks on Twitter. Journalists are on Twitter for obvious reasons. Govind mentioned using the platform for distribution. Suhasini talked about the news ticker service. It's almost like a real-time news ticker service. He's going to it for news. So what is Twitter as a social media platform offering content creators? What is it therefore offering brands?
So I think for brands, it's, I think you made the point that it's only 40 million users in India, and it's
very limited reach.
I mean, if you look at the advertising revenue of Twitter, it's roughly 1/8 of Meta. So it's reflecting in the audience reach size, and I think that's how advertising operates. And I think if you look at it from the perspective of the buyer, Elon Musk, I think what he's seeing two insights. On this panel itself, we've seen 4 people out of 2 people saying they love the service. It's their preferred service. They would not mind paying for it. I think it's creating a new framework in the way social media is owned and monetized. Because so far, social media has been reliant on advertisers to fund social media or, make revenue for social media. And Govind made a great point about the fact that there's a hole in the P&L. There's 200 million to 700 million, depending on how you look at it, being lost every year. That needs to be filled. Even if you look at 100 million of these users being like Suhasini and Viraj, who say that, look, I'll pay those $8, that's a lot of money coming in every month. And I think that's very interesting, because it's kind of like you got to look at it from the point of view of, in the Indian context, how Hotstar came and started doing premium and started actually making money. Do you have a version of social media for that? Of course, it opens up another can of worms, which is, the content creators, do they actually get paid as a result of that? As of now, not necessarily, because they need to fill in their own balance sheets and, they need to plug their own P&L.
So you're saying that Twitter as it is today, is not really an advertiser-friendly medium, is it?
Well, it's not the first go-to choice. As advertisers, because the inventory is, the inventory is not heavily visual. Most advertising, I think, the big challenge with digital advertising, where it's been pushed back, is that for brand building, television still plays a lion's share role, especially in a country like India, where it's only 36% of digital spend, because advertisers have set models and they're convinced about the fact that, look, when I put money in television, my consumer has a larger than life experience, the brand stays. A text promoted, a hashtag promoted, chances are that it won't stick as the lead medium.
Yes, and isn't it true that, really Twitter is about the conversation now, and that conversation now is not necessarily about brands, isn't it?
Exactly.
Unless it's a bad conversation for the most part.
Exactly. And I think a lot of brands, actually, I would be willing to put, put my neck on the line for this. I think a lot of brands would have gained a lot more value by being smart organically versus advertising. I mean, even if you read the casework, you'll see a brand like Fevicol saying something interesting and being tweeted by Harsh Goenka, or you'll see a Wendy's being regarded as, hey, they have this language. Now, they're not regarded for the amount of money they spend. So I think that's a challenge. I think they recognize that, because they recognize that they're not the lead advertising platform. And there's this challenge on revenue, and advertisers are walking out. So let's do something and let's create a new model where, loyal users would be willing to pay for their platform.
Let me bring Suhasini back in here. Suhasini, toxicity and because it's a lot of journalistic, news-based information, political conversations, and the political conversation across the world, in the US, definitely in India, very polarized at the moment, and therefore very toxic. Do you see Elon Musk's very stated mission to make it centrist? His idea of centrist, of course, is moving it more towards the right, perhaps all the way right. But do you see that, changing? Do you see the toxicity actually increasing if he shifts it further right?
Well, that is a tough question for journalists, because at the base of what we believe in is freedom of expression. So one should believe that Mr. Musk should not be disqualified from expressing his political beliefs simply because he is the owner of the platform. I think where it becomes troubling is over the idea that Twitter is more amenable to governments over the individual. So if the government asks for an account to be frozen or to be suspended, how quickly Twitter reacts to okay that, even if the individual has not actually done something that violates Twitter laws. Those kind of questions are much more problematic, I think, than whether someone expresses themselves openly on a platform or not. At the end of
would
the
you
day,
be okay if Donald Trump was reinstated?
Well, I honestly cannot say that that there should be a problem with that. If everybody, under what circumstances do you decide this person must be gagged or this person should not be on? You have to have an open, a transparent kind of model that tells people, here is what you can and cannot say. For example, everyone has the right to block, and people ask, how do you decide? Is not blocking itself a kind of gagging of other people's freedom of expression? And I have certain personal rules which I don't expect anyone else to follow, in terms of profanity, in terms of targeted harassment, in terms of gender-based slurs that are used by people. I don't particularly, because I see Twitter as I would see my marketplace, or I would see my neighborhood park. I will only engage with those people who will speak in a civilized sort of manner. And obviously, criticism is not a problem. Political views are not a problem. Differences over issues are not a problem.
Misinformation, hate speech, those are problems, right?
And I think, therefore, you must be much more open about why you are stopping someone. I think in the Trump case, there was a case made that he had put out misleading and false information about the validity of the elections. That's something that should at least have an appeals process as well. But as I said, I think it's not so much the freedom of expression I have a problem with. It is about the basic guidelines on how you conduct yourself on what is essentially a public platform, and what you should be allowed to express or to put out when you're targeting somebody else. How the debate should go. It shouldn't debase the entire platform.
Right. So rules of civility. But Suhasini, quick follow-up. You mentioned that you would want to see whether Twitter sort of falls in line with what governments want as opposed to individual freedom of expression and rights. We do know that Twitter in India has taken the government of India to court, saying that it's abusing its power, isn't it, and asking for accounts to be taken down. Do you see that case being dropped? I mean, Twitter just calling it off now that Elon Musk runs it?
Well, certainly, given the costs of these legal suits, that's a possibility. But I think eventually, Anuradha, I know it sounds very idealistic, but every organization, every individual, and every government has to stand up for the views they believe in. And that means worldwide. Twitter cannot say in one place, we stand for these values, but here we'll just counter. So I think they have to see from their point of view what works. As I said, for me, it is a platform that has been extremely enriching, learned a lot from Twitter, continuously love the feedback that we are able to get as journalists, and the engagement, particularly in a time, remember, where we are looking at a place where politicians and government officials often don't speak to journalists directly. They don't hold press conferences. Our Prime Minister hasn't held a press conference so far, but he is available.
On
and
Twitter.
You can see much more of him on Twitter. So, this is an invaluable service from many points of view. I wouldn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I think there must be more transparency, more honesty when it comes to just what Twitter wants.
We'll take a quick break and come back. We're going to find out what the other ramifications are of Musk's takeover of Twitter. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Media Dialogues, and we are discussing all the changes that Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter are likely to bring in the lives of Twitter users. And to discuss that, I've been talking to Viraj Sheth, Govindraj Ethiraj, Suhasini Haidar, and Harshil Karya. Harshil, how are Indian advertisers reacting to Twitter, given that it's not the significance is not that high in their media plans?
It's a ruthless audience. It's also an audience which kind of is more independent, free-spirited in that sense. So it's not an audience you necessarily advertise to. It's not visual. So I think a lot of Indian brands are now sitting and playing wait and watch. The numbers are showing that the number of active users actually increasing. Whether that increases significantly or not is yet to be seen, because at the same time, while you have Twitter in the landscape, you have Snap becoming increasingly relevant in India, you have ShareChat becoming increasingly relevant, you have a talk of a return of TikTok back to India, you have Meta doing whatever they need to gain more users.
Insta has notes, so there's a lot of competition for Twitter,
Absolutely.
isn't it? As the moment text gets appropriated within any of these, do you think Twitter could be
there's a genuine risk of it being sidelined. There is a genuine risk of it being sidelined from the advertisers' media budget. It's today, 1/10 of the media plan. And I think
the social media plan.
The media plan, or the digital media plan. And I think there's a genuine risk that it becomes even smaller. And I think that we have got to wait and watch and be wary. And I think it's also, do you get actually more users on the platform as a result of all this happening? Because there's just not enough users on the platform. With 40 million, it doesn't become the mainstay. And
so advertising revenues, which are the lion's share of Twitter's revenues and by far, may not really take off in India, you're saying? Hasn't taken off and may not take off even going further. So those subscription revenues that they're aiming for will definitely come in very handy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
And I think it makes sense why they're doing that.
Yeah. Viraj, are you checking out Mastodon? Should I?
So honestly, I was reading some tweets.
Actually, Musk and Mastodon actually go better together, given what Mastodon stands for. This powerful, influential, big giant.
Right. No, so I kind of disagree with Harshil on the fact that it may get sidelined by advertisers, but it definitely won't get sidelined by users. The reason being, the most eminent personalities are still accessible and active only on Twitter.
And you see them staying invested?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
And I kind of hate to agree with Musk in saying, when he says that it is the most interesting place on the internet, which it kind of is. It's because where do you get direct access to, say a Kanye West and tweet back to him? Or where do you get direct access to Elon Musk and he ends up taking feedback and negotiates the price from $20 to $8?
Stephen King,
Yeah, that's nuts. So it does have its own USPs where it is accessibility to extremely inaccessible people through this platform. And I feel like because of Musk coming back into charge, he's also super active CEO.
Yeah.
We probably didn't see Jack
Dorsey,
doing that a lot. And I feel like that's what's brought in the excitement. Also, Twitter is supremely active with gamers and crypto folks. And that's a lot of the younger generation as well. So I feel like that's going to be maybe the next wave of people coming on to the platform as well.
So you love it, you'd be sorry to see it go, but you can also see ways in which it can be better.
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. Govind, any words of wisdom for Elon Musk? He's getting it in, isn't it? But if you tweet it, you have to pay for it.
No, I think like any new CEO who takes on a role, I think he should step back, stop tweeting real time as you said it yourself, and focus on the task ahead. I'm sure he can do things, but equally bear in mind, as many others have said, that you cannot engineer your way around it. This is not rocket science. This is something much more simpler and social. It deals with people and emotions and so on. Also remember, you have platforms like LinkedIn, which a lot of people use for the saner stuff, which are pretty large and influential. So it's not like other platforms cannot grow and take over. Things can change very suddenly in the technology world.
I should be on LinkedIn. I am, I think, but I don't do anything on LinkedIn, Twitter.
Yeah, and all the people that you mentioned, including the Prime Minister of India, are on LinkedIn as well. So things can change quite suddenly in the technology world. You just have to keep that in mind.
Suhasini, Govind, Viraj, Harshil, thank you all very much for this conversation. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. It's a place to hear the right and the left, and I really wish Twitter finds ways to get more young people on board, because they would enjoy a lot of the conversations if they could get on. Thank you very much for watching. Look out for another conversation on Media Dialogues on CNBC-TV18 next week. See you then.